Tipp today, in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slattery'sGarage.ie.
Good morning, welcome along to Tipp today on this very wet morning right around the Premier County, right around the country in fact. So if you're about to set out driving, just to be aware there's a lot of flooding on the roads out there. 1800 938 007, that's our free phone number. It won't cost you if you'd like to make a call to us, and Ali is producing today. Coming up on the show this morning, a national survey into the hot meals programme in our schools. The price of a pint is on the increase. We chat to a friend of the late great Sean O'Shea's. Electronic tagging is questioned. More chat about ballrooms and show bands following our conversation yesterday. Dear Phil, where Phil will answer some of your queries. So all of that and much, much more on the way. You can text and WhatsApp 083 311 3311. You can email tiptoday@tippfm.com. Let's have a look at the front pages of some of your newspapers today. There's Independent leading with the story that thousands of carers are being hit with tax bills going back years after Revenue got access to data on their payments. Now, Charlie Weston goes on to say that it comes after the Department of Social Protection started sharing data files on those receiving carers allowance and carers benefit payments with Revenue. And Revenue has already written to 34,000 family carers, warning that those who have not been declaring the payments as income that they may owe back tax. So I'm sure that's scary for a lot of carers out there to hear about that. The Irish Times, the lead story on the Times today. European leaders are hoping to prevent a trade war breaking out with the United States over Greenland, but are preparing contingency plans to push back on Donald Trump's blackmail attempts should high-stakes attempts to defuse tensions this week fail. Also on the Irish Times today, we're reading that a Garda investigation was launched into the source of the first media reports about Garda Trevor Bolger being charged over domestic violence directed at his wife, then also a serving member of the force. And also on the Times today, one of Ireland's best-known wild animals, the Sika deer, has been declared as an invasive species in the European Union, raising questions indeed around whether it must now be culled. To the Irish Examiner, and it's dominated by a rather wonderful photograph indeed. The Aurora Borealis was captured by a resident in Glanmire in Cork last night, the Northern Lights. The result of a collision, we're told, between gas particles in our atmosphere and charged particles ejected from the sun's atmosphere. And that's according to Met Éireann. But anyway, the result is rather gorgeous. Also on the Examiner today, we're reading that a retired Garda superintendent accused of unlawfully quashing penalty points has been described as an outstanding crime fighter who previously used his discretion to save lives. Also, Mr. Trump there featured on the front page. Trump ramps up Greenland threat is the headline there, the Irish Daily Mail. And a tax shock for carers. And once again, that's that story that we mentioned from the Indo, that tens of thousands of carers face being hit with unexpected taxes since Revenue started sharing data with the Department of Social Protection this month. So let's look at what's making headlines on some of your newspapers today. If you'd like to comment on any of that, once again, you can text WhatsApp 083 311 3311. Now, Fine Gael recently launched a national survey for the Hot School Meals programme to get the views of parents and teachers on how the scheme has been run in the past few years and how it could be improved. Senator Linda Nelson-Murray is behind the survey and will present the results to government, which will then, of course, help dictate the national policy on the scheme. But Senator Nelson-Murray joins me now. Good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning. Thanks a million for having me on.
Well, it's good to talk to you today, and thank you for your time. You described the programme already as a major success, but I'm wondering how are you measuring that without the result of the survey?
Sure, no bother. I suppose the first great measure that we have is last week, I'm on the Joint Directors Committee on Education, Fran, and last week we had all the management boards of ETBs, Educate Together, CPSMA, all the management guys came in to discuss the hot school meals. We're actually doing it over a few weeks. And they have done their own internal, I suppose, surveys and findings. And there's little things that I wouldn't have even thought of. They said that it really increases the well-being of children. It actually makes children stay at school, would you believe, in the afternoons and not leave at lunchtime. And they said in some cases it's where a child, the only meal, in fact, that they'll get in the day is the one at school. Never would have thought of that when I started out on this survey. It was kind of more about the food when I initially started out. So they've come back to say it's a massive success as far as they're concerned. But from a parent's point of view, and from a teacher's point of view, and from principal's point of view, there's definitely, let's just say, constructive comments on the type of food, the variety, the choice, the nutritional needs. You know, if you are someone like maybe gluten intolerant, what's the waste like, the packaging? And they're all the things that we're looking at in this survey. So it's a success in the sense that 3,200 schools have access to the hot school meals now, 550,000 students across Ireland, which is amazing. If you think back 6 years ago, it was only in 36 schools. And now we have it in 3,200. So that's the way I'm saying it's a success. But I really feel that now we need to really look and see what is the food like, what's the quality like, what's the waste like, you know, and fine-tune it. And that's kind of what this survey is about. And it was literally, I was on the way to an education committee in November, and we were talking about the hot school meals, and I just threw it up on social media and said, look, I'm going to go and talk about these. Anyone, any comments? And my pages just blew up with comments from people. And I thought, you know what, we actually need to really do a national survey on this. And we've just under 6,000 responses at the moment. And I'd love if your listeners were part of that survey and filled it out.
Yeah, because we discussed it, Senator, on the programme a couple of months ago, and yesterday we had John McGurk from Gripped on about it, because I'm not sure if you're across that piece that he wrote about it, and he estimated the spend at 288 million for 2026, which is an awful lot of money.
About 300 million. Yeah,
you go along with that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He also said that he spoke to one particular principal who estimated the waste at 30%. Which seems to be very high. Would that play into what you've been hearing, or?
From some parents, and depending on, I suppose, the child, and also depending on the companies, and that's what I really need to kind of look and get these findings from this survey. Definitely, some schools send back the lunchbox, I suppose, with the food in it, so that the parents can see what the child is eating. Some schools arrange for collection of waste. The suppliers that deliver it actually come back and collect the waste as well. So there is definitely some waste. And then you have some people saying, my child loves it and is eating the whole lot. And that's the type of information that we're trying to get. Like, is there enough variety? Like, I had one woman saying to me last week, Linda, my child is the most fussy eater. They'll only eat rice, and they actually eat ketchup with rice, which to many of us that mightn't sound very appetising, but she sends in a little portion of ketchup and they only eat the rice. And the school meals provides plain rice. It provides plain pasta in many circumstances. For some of those management bodies were saying that for the first time children are actually eating some vegetables because it's all munched up into the sauces that they never would have eaten before. So it is positive, but there's definitely some negatives, and that's what we're trying to find out with this survey.
Yeah, it's a tough one with kids, and I mean, you alluded to some of it there now, because something can be nutritious but very unappealing, if you know what I mean, Senator, you know. So therefore then we've had some complaints that, you know, you have your chicken nuggets and your pizza and that's all right, and that's popular with the kids, but it's not nutritious. So where do you find some balance there?
Yeah, well, I suppose in fairness, this is run through the Department of Social Protection, but it's a cross-party scheme. So it's Department of Social Protection and the Department of Health and the Department of Education. And what they actually did was they hired a dietitian from Corru last summer, I believe, and started, I suppose, getting the work out in September. And from last September, you now can't have any foods that are high in salt or high in fat. I think there was a good bit of nuggets initially at the start, but now they have to be made in a way that's more nutritional. So there is an interdepartmental working group at the moment within those departments, and they're looking at things like procurement, they're looking at food safety, the impact of the school meals programme, health and safety in relation to the school meals programme. So that's ongoing and will continue to be ongoing. It has to be, Fran, when you're looking at food. I have a business myself that we actually make food. It's an activity centre, and you have to be very careful when it comes to food, especially with the safety when you're giving it to people. So that's always going to be ongoing, and they're looking at the nutritional needs. And this survey, which hopefully we'll get even more results from, will be able to feed into that and feed into their work, because it's the first time really that there's been a really big national survey since the launch, and it's only because now that nearly every school has it. I think it's about 300 schools, Fran, don't have it at the moment.
What about when the food gets to the school? I mean, we've had some complaints that the food ends up being lukewarm. So I'm just wondering about the serving of the food, Senator, when it gets to the schools. Have you looked at that? Will you look at that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually meeting suppliers now. I'm just setting up appointments to meet suppliers over the next week or two, just to get it from their point of view. I met one supplier last week. But what seems to be happening in some schools, Fran, is that the hot box, the box that the food comes in that keeps it warm, can sometimes go to the school quite early in the morning. It's made earlier that morning, and then perhaps the children aren't eating until about 12 o'clock, and sometimes the food can get steamy. Again, I know myself, or you'd know from your home, if you cover chips or pasta in tinfoil for a couple of hours, it's going to get a bit saggy.
Sure,
and
yeah.
that is what's happening. So that does happen, and that's something that we're going to look at. And I suppose what's good to know about the scheme as well is there's actually 300 suppliers, which again, I didn't know until I started doing the work on it, and that's feeding into the scheme. And in many cases, in some rural schools, they're using their local pub and restaurant to deliver the food. They're using their local little supermarket, which is good because it's coming in fresher. Do you know what I mean? Because they're only delivering into that school. And then some of the other schools that are finding it hard to find somebody are taking it from a further distance. And in those cases, the food can get a little bit steamed. So they're the things that we're looking at in the survey as well. How can we improve that?
Is it possible that you might look at maybe almost nuclear options, in that would the money be better spent by helping schools to have kitchens on the premises maybe, and maybe somebody to make the food, that it would be fresh and available at that? Would you look at other options outside of the box?
Absolutely, and we've had some people even saying, how about community schemes where you have somebody in a community that maybe makes the food? We say you're taking
like Meals on Wheels, for example. Yeah.
And would you believe, Fran, I didn't know, again, Meals on Wheels actually do this food. So they deliver into some schools as well, and they're doing really well out of it, which is lovely. But something like Meals on Wheels, exactly, where you have a centre point, in a radius of 3 or 4 villages, and they're supplying in the food. That's something that's been looked at. Obviously, you know, suppliers are doing a very good job themselves as it is. So, you know, again, this working group is having a look at all that, and again, the survey will feed into it. But those type of options, the dream is exactly what you said at the start there. Like, I mean, it'd be amazing if you had kitchens in every school. But Fran, with the greatest respect to all our schools around the country, I could see that would probably be a long time away, but perhaps it should be something that now we're considering, that when every new school building is being built, that happens. Because, you know, like you'd see in I suppose, America, where they have their food being made on the premises, that would be fantastic and would make sure it's fresher. But right now, this is the scheme that we have. It does ensure, like, I don't know how old you are, Fran, now, but I turned 50 there in August, and when I was in school years ago, in the late 70s, early 80s, the nuns would come round and ask who didn't have a lunch, and you put your hand up and you got your carton of milk and you got your hot cross bun. And these days it makes it equal that the person beside you, who mightn't come from the same background or circumstances that you come from, is getting the same food as you. So it's definitely a positive that we have these. It's about getting it right, and as you say, looking maybe at kitchens in the future, looking at central, maybe community-based supplying. All of that has to be explored. I mean, it's a good thing we have it, but how do we get it even better?
You just answered one of the things I was going to put to you, which is that notion that should it be more targeted. But again, I take your point that it isolates kids then, doesn't it?
And I never realised that years ago, but it probably does.
I saw. I'm much older than you, I'm afraid, Senator,
Right,
but
okay.
I remember it well, and I remember seeing kids being isolated and targeted because they, you know,
didn't have the lunch coming in another way. So exactly. So at least this removes that, and now it's about getting it definitely right for some people. Like, some people don't take the food, some people do. It's a lovely app. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the apps that are there, like some suppliers, you have 15 choices on a Monday. I mean, for me, I'm a mommy of 10-year-old and 11-year-old girls. My school doesn't have it yet. They're actually putting it in now in the next month. I'm looking forward to it. Like, it takes me probably 20 minutes in the mornings, 25 minutes to get the lunches ready. I'm looking forward to not having to do that. But I'm also looking forward to seeing what the quality is like, and do my kids enjoy it. I'm lucky I don't have fussy eaters, but it'll be interesting to see what it's like, you know. So
you're encouraging our listeners this morning to get involved in the survey. How can they do that?
Really easy. It only takes about 3 or 4 minutes. You just go on to fieldgale.ie/hot school meals. Very easy. It won't take much time out of your day, and this will all help form policy in the future, so it's really important.
All right, really good to talk to you today, and thank you for your time,
Nice to
Senator.
talk to you.
Thank you.
Fran.
Good morning to
Take
you.
care.
That's Senator Linda Nelson Murray speaking to us this morning. How do you feel about that? And we had a similar conversation on the show yesterday, indeed, about the whole school meal programme. And if you'd like to share with us, 083 311 3311.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Deirdre was on saying, I can't believe that we planned to serve hot meals to our school children with no way of keeping them warm before serving them. And no wonder kids can't or won't eat it. Lukewarm dinners are not one bit appetising. Why was there no plan put in place in schools to warm food before the scheme started? It seems like the cart is always before the horse. Again, planning seems to have a regular pattern in this country, says Deirdre to us. And one of our listeners is concerned about the beef and the chicken and whether we know is it of Irish origin or not. It's a very good question. I didn't put that to the Senator. We'll see if we can find that out for you. Now, the Vintners Federation of Ireland has strongly criticised Diageo's decision to increase the price of its draft products by a further 7 cents per pint, effective from the 2nd of next month, warning that the move will pile yet more pressure on pubs already struggling to survive. The president of the Vintners Association of Ireland, Michael O'Donovan, joins me now. Michael, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And good to talk to you today. A further 7%, but that's ex-VAT, so that will result in what, about 20 cents, is it?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what's going to happen. You know, at the start of the year, we saw minimum wage increased with government legislation, and pension auto-enrolment came in, and a lot of counties across the country, including Tipperary, are going to see a rates rise around April. So with all that combination, it's inevitable that with this increase, that publicans will increase it by 20 cents, because that would cover your costs really and keep you still. If you don't increase your price, unfortunately, you run the risk of your business not surviving. So it's another hit to our industry, to be quite honest, and very disappointing that it's coming so soon after the last increase. It seems now like we're having yearly increases by the breweries, which is pushing the cost of doing business and the cost of the pint across the counter up.
Now, you say if you don't increase your price, your business may be in jeopardy. But I mean, if you do increase your price, customers like myself will find it more difficult to go out to the pub because it's just getting too expensive.
Absolutely. Look, that's the risk. But, you know, I suppose you'd be hopeful that customers, you know, would feel that it's still, you know, enjoyable to go out, a social occasion. We appreciate very much that our customers are in a cost of living crisis also. But bottom line is, if the business isn't viable, it won't survive. So in order for it to survive, you know, that's somewhere where people will have to make a decision what price they increase it by, but it looks like 20 cents is what's been suggested to keep their business viable going forward.
Now, Diageo are saying that, you know, it's industry-wide cost pressures, going on to say as industry-wide cost pressures remain elevated, this increase is essential for Diageo to maintain sustainable operations in Ireland. Do you go along with that? Can you see their difficulties as well?
Look, I'm not here to defend Diageo, but look, I suppose, yes, we all run our own business. We all see energy, you know, wage increases. They are costs, but, you know, Diageo are a massive company that make massive money every year for their shareholders. And, you know, there has to come a time that I suppose we will have to see, will the breweries step up and hold price to give, you know, publicans, but more importantly to give our customers time to breathe and catch up, because we've been asking them. I made a speech at our national AGM last May, and I pleaded with our suppliers to hold the price for 18 months. And unfortunately, here we are. 8 months later, they're increasing the price again. And I think if they had held the price, it would have, given a bit of certainty, a bit of help to our industry. And, between our suppliers and the government legislation, it's just becoming increasingly difficult to keep their business afloat.
What does it say about the power of your lobby, though, Michael? I mean, if a company like Diageo is not listening to the Vintners Association, what does it say about yourselves?
Yeah, look, I suppose we have to think of other ways that we can maybe, put things across to Diageo and other suppliers. And
like what?
We are working on. Well, I suppose one of the things is that we maybe brew our own beer or something like that, and start supplying it to our pubs, our members. If that could be achieved, I think that would be one way to try and push Diageo or any of our suppliers to listen to us going forward. But I suppose that is a major logistical issue that we would have across the country. But I think it's something that we may have to look at going forward, because it might be the only way that we could, I suppose, bring them to the table and understand our difficulties.
Right, but of course, if you became brewers yourself, I mean, you'd suffer from the same difficulties that Diageo is, costs, staffing, labour costs, all of these kind of things.
Yes, it would, but I suppose if we were to brew ourselves, we wouldn't be, I suppose, answerable to shareholders. So we could keep costs down and to a minimum and try and supply our members with a beer that they could sell at a price that they could,
But is that a reality, Michael? I mean, if I go into my local pub, I might want my pint of Guinness. I mightn't want a pint of Vintners Association dark brew. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, look,
realistically.
People have brand loyalty to brands that they like, and that will be, I suppose, a challenge for us going forward. But I suppose if we don't do anything, I suppose pubs will start to disappear with these increases year on year and the cost of doing business. So it's come a time that I suppose we have to try something different to try and make our businesses viable, to keep them there for the next generations. Many of our pubs, as many of your listeners would know, in their communities, is probably the heartbeat of the community, especially in rural Tipperary. It would be the place where they'd go to celebrate a match, or if there's a funeral or a christening. And if these pubs disappear in their areas, it's not until
well, they are disappearing, Michael. They are disappearing before our eyes, are they not?
Look, yes, there has been a reduction in the last 15 years, but there are still many pubs that serve communities, and unfortunately, they're the ones that we have to try and mind. Like across the world, they try and replicate the Irish bar, and we have some of the best Irish pubs in the world here at home, and we're trying to get rid of them. So there has to come a time that the government will have to make a decision. Do they want to keep these pubs for social inclusion, or do they want to get rid of them? So I think the time is coming pretty fast that they'll have to realise that these are part of the community and these are needed for our communities. So
what are you looking for from the government, for example, then?
Well, I suppose from the government, we gave them last year an excise rebate. Our excise is the second highest in Europe. A rebate scheme that they could help rural Republicans. The rural Republican pays for the keg, pays excise, and at the end of the year that they would get a rebate on some of that money that they pay the government. It was costed at 73 million, which sounds a lot of money, but compared to some of the other grants that the government are giving out, it's achievable, it's reasonable. It was costed by an economist, and we will be pleading with the government in the next budget to really consider this, because it might be a viable way to keep pubs alive going forward. And if pubs were able to get this rebate, some of these increases, they could absorb them, where at the moment there is just no margin to absorb them. Talking to many publicans across the country, they're operating on minuscule margins, and any increase that we've seen in the last few weeks and in the next few weeks, pushes them over the edge. So I'd have a real fear that some mightn't survive, where if the government were able to introduce this rebate scheme, it would give them breathing room going forward.
You're also looking for measures to ease the labour costs, and you're also looking at employer PRSI supports as well.
Yeah, well, look, we have one of the, I suppose, a high employer PRSI percentage, and the government have been increasing it. And look, the minimum wage, we absolutely want to see our staff paid well and rewarded for the work they do. But the government put a chunk on top of that as well, PRSI, and Retail Ireland, ourselves in hospitality. We're asking the government if they could help on that, because it is a major cost as an employer paying the government your employer's PRSI. So these are all small measures, but they're big helps to small businesses, especially in rural Ireland, that depend on local footfall and mightn't have the population. So any bit of help that they can give will make that business viable and survive into the future for future generations.
A lot of other small businesses out there, though, in similar situations and struggling. I mean, why should our publicans be treated any differently, Michael?
Well, I suppose the employer's PRSI would be, it wouldn't just be for publicans, it would be for all industries, retail or, any industry that would be out there. And I think there is a lot of industries asking government for help on that. IBEC are very much involved in that, and they represent a large cohort of employers across the country. The one that's specific for pubs, I suppose, is the excise rebate scheme, and that would be, as I said, just to make the business viable, because lots of communities have no social outlet now, and in order to protect the ones that are there, that would make them viable to go forward. So that's why we're pleading with the government for a targeted help. For those that do food, they've given a targeted help this July when they're reducing the VAT rate on food. But lots of pubs in this country don't do food; they just do drink, and they have the same costs and the same issues, but they're not getting any help. And the government have recognised that there is a difficulty in the area, so they're doing the food reduction. So we're now asking them to help with the drink pubs, that they do the rebate on the excise to help those in that sector.
Listeners saying publicans are no saints either, always adding on a few extra cents on pints at every single increase. And it certainly seems like that to those of us who enjoy a pint. We always pay up. We always end up being the one who have to suffer on this, Michael. What do you say to that listener?
Yeah, look, I very much sympathise with that listener, but as I outlined, with all the increases that we've seen with wage increases, with pension auto-enrolment rates, and with supplier costs increasing, it's inevitable that it has to be passed on, because without passing it on, your business is just not viable. And, we don't want to be passing it on, but we have to, because otherwise our businesses will go.
Yeah, quite a lot of our listeners on with the kind of profits that Diageo is making, and some of the profit there is eye-watering, isn't it?
It is, and unfortunately, a lot of pension funds are shareholders of Diageo and many of our supplier companies, and they look for dividends at the end of the year, and unfortunately we're the ones that have to pay that money to give them the profits to give the dividends, and it's a vicious circle. But I think it infuriates a lot of publicans at our meetings around the country when they hear of the exorbitant profits that these companies make, and yet we see price rises and we're the ones paying that.
One of our listeners saying, ask Michael about the 0.0 beer as well. And I suppose what the listener is referring to there is the fact that we seem to be paying at least the same or maybe more for 0.0 beer in our pubs. That always seems unfair to me, Michael.
Yeah, look, I think if anybody goes into a supermarket and, or an off license and just picks up a bottle of 0.0 beer for home, it's on par with, say, the alcohol version of that. And the reason there is no excise on it, but the costs of producing it are far higher, and that's why it's a more expensive product to make, because they make it now as the alcohol product, and then they take it a few steps further to bring the alcohol out of it. Now, I'm not here to defend the brewers that do that, that make the product, but that is the process that it takes. So it's a more expensive product to make, and it costs us more to buy it in. Hence, it's sold at nearly the same price maybe slightly cheaper than the alcohol version, but there's very little difference in it.
Yeah, somebody making the point that Beamish is cleaning up in Cork at $4.80 a pint. In other words, they're keeping it under a fiver at this point. So I suppose the point they're making there is maybe, and you alluded to it earlier on, maybe you need to look to other beer and punish Diageo in some way.
Yeah, look, people will have to make their choices as to what they do, but look, I suppose people have preferences for drinks that they like to drink, favourite drinks, but, I suppose there is choice in the market, so if people were to choose differently, they could see, I suppose, savings in their pocket.
All right, Michael, good to talk to you today, and thank you for your time. Thank you. Good morning to you. That's Michael O'Donovan there, President of the Vintners Association of Ireland. Do you want to talk to us about your experience of your local pub and pricing and all of that kind of thing, and Diageo and one thing and another, and whatever Michael was talking to us about there, if you want to make reference to any of that? 083 311 3311.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1-800-938-007.
Now, the Irish pubs and drinks industry is run by a cartel of two huge companies, Diageo and Heineken, says one of our listeners. The majority of pubs aren't allowed to stock beers apart from those provided by these companies, as a result, selling only commercial lager, cider or Guinness. So that seems to be the situation there where that is concerned. 083 311 3311. And of course, we're always delighted to hear from you. Don't forget it, you can email us on tiptoday@tippfm.com at any point at all. Now, Sean O'Shea, the singer who, along with Sean Riada and Cultúra Chualann, revolutionised Irish traditional music in the 1960s, as you know, passed away last week, having been ill for a short time. Now, O'Shea, who performed all over the world, was specifically recognised for his version of An Pucker Buile, the first song in Irish to top the charts. Well, Bernard O'Sullivan was a friend of the iconic singer, and he joins me now. Good morning. Okay, he's not there. We don't have him at the moment, I think. So we'll see if we can get back to him. In the meantime, let's have a listen to Sean.
Hemar trasna tríre logo Snoglotion cora per fuid na muinge Is trasker da boer Shens na tortoga Hos na noi na grom le puinne Hallelu, puillelu, hallelu Man fucker puille, hallelu, puillelu Hallelu, man fucker puille Nirog shek harigorev skotam Nagorrele porsa kon mead ville Shansan da fa shen lemba bo Lepana morna falle bricke Hallelu, puillelu, hallelu Man fucker puille, hallelu, puillelu Vi går de år mal en rostig is vallig for sig kan skinne klippe da bolsje rap dair så toner Slavristen og det inn skjegge vel Hallelu, puillelu, hallelu Han pakker vel, hallelu, puillelu Hallelu, han pakker in ein Ichusle ein Franona, wie ein Saber Frosch, der macht nach Guinness, steht durch Kaffee an die Bagolisch, ach, Reiben Troer, Pokan, Wille, Allelo, Willelo, Allelo, Van Fokker, Wille, Allelo, Willelo,
That's the great Sean O'Shea, bringing you back lots and lots of memories. I would imagine we're still trying to get Bernard O'Sullivan on the line. As soon as we do, we'll have a good chat with him. But lovely memories of Sean over many, many, many years. I remember as a young lad of about 14 or 15, playing the accordion, would you believe, along with Sean O'Shea up in Arlo House, and it was a great thrill to do so. I met him many, many times indeed after that. It's various different functions and stuff we got to play with him, and we had mighty crack. He was a great storyteller, of course, as well as a singer, and he knew how to hold a crowd with his storytelling. And then, of course, you had the beautiful voice as well as everything else. One of our listeners says, zero alcohol beer is $1.50 a bottle in Spain, $2.50 for a bottle of Heineken. It's anything up to €5.50 and €6 in Ireland. They can charge what they want. It's rip-off Ireland, it says here. Somebody else saying, surely Fran 00 is not taxed the same as alcohol-based drinks. No, it's not. But the point that Michael O'Donovan was making there was that it is, I mean, you could don't shoot the messenger on this, but what they're saying is that it's more costly to produce, and that's what the issue is there, where that is concerned. All right. Lots of people on to us about various different things this morning. The whole school meal thing is blowing up as well. Somebody else saying, I think it's Jamie, asked that lad, that would be Michael O'Donovan, why does zero alcohol Guinness have alcohol in it? There was a lad interviewed before Christmas, and he said it was barely under the limits, Jamie. I couldn't see how that could be the case, but there you go. Let me see if we can get Bernard online now. See, Bernard, good morning to you.
Hello.
Hello,
Good
Bernard.
morning, Fran.
Good morning to you.
How are you?
Good to talk to you today, Bernard, and thank you for your
Likewise.
time. And apologies for the gremlins on the line there. Will you tell me about your association with Sean O'Shea? How far back does it go, Bernard?
Oh, God, I tell you what, in terms of going back, it goes back a long ways or whatever, because his mother taught my grandmother's family back in Kilkeel in West Cork, from, you know what I mean, the early 1900s or whatever. So, and now that's putting a very long distance on it. Sean and I would have rekindled that friendship again in the early noughties, 2005, 2006. And Sean at that time started going on tours and doing some performances with Cultus Cultúra Éireann. And so we got together at that time, and we hit it off magically, and became tremendous friends over the last 20 plus years.
What was special about him? Needless to say, the voice, the storytelling, all of that, but he had a unique charisma as a human being, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Sean was he was fantastic. He was great company, and you had his undivided attention in a very special way or whatever. He was a man of great compassion, great integrity. It was said that when during his teaching career up at St. Mary's on the Hill in Knocknaheeny in Cork or whatever, that over his 30 years there as the principal or whatever, that he looked out for each and every student that ever went through that school, no matter how difficult their background was, or no matter what the story was. He followed them right through to most of them followed them through to getting employed. Yeah.
His place in the history of Irish music and the development of Irish music, he played a very important part, but didn't he wear it easily, Bernard, particularly the association with O'Riordan?
Yes, he did. Yeah, himself and Sean O'Riordan were like brothers,
yes.
To be honest, or whatever. And they absolutely clicked because Sean became the voice for the music that and the transition that O'Riordan was putting into place at that time. So they again, like I said, they were a perfect marriage, and that song, the V-Ban Usul or whatever, was a song that Sean learned from Sean O'Riordan or whatever, and became one of his favorite songs. But again, Sean was, he was so rooted in the early makeup of the music. You have the Kiltori Coolan, O'Riordan's Gaiety, and the early days or whatever. He was there at the cutting edge or whatever, and as well as his musical voice or whatever, he was very very aware of the music and its changes.
You brought him to the singing circle as well, Bernard.
We did, yeah. Sean started coming to our singing circle. We have the singing circle in Calais now running, I suppose, the bones of 30 years or more. We started there by my late mum, Margaret O'Sullivan, who the association was that my mother taught or worked in the hotel in Ballylickey, and that's where Sean was from. So when my mum and Sean met up or whatever, again, it was a great connection there, whatever, powerful connection, because they were able to trace back and forth the highways and byways of West Cork, and then coming along to Tipperary, whatever. Yeah, Sean would come to our singing session, which is the second Monday of every month, running from October to May each year, and he held a very special place there because he came in again, like you say, unassumingly, nothing, no airs or graces or whatever, and just he blended in with the rest of the group there, whatever, and would have sang his couple of songs. But he commented many times on how much he actually loved Calais and the community there, and coming there and being part of them. He felt that he was almost like an adopted son, if you like. And he joked one time saying that there's a particular high note in that song, the V-Ban Usul or whatever, and he commented, he said, if one time too many, he said, I go for that high note, he said, and the man above says, that's it, Sean, over and out, and he conks out or whatever. He said the following week, the heading on the Tipperary Star will Pucker goes out in high note in Calais.
That's lovely, isn't it? Yeah.
And of course, that was the kind of man that he was. There was a great jovial, Divilman's funny side to Sean, which was always part of who he was.
The unassuming part of I always loved as well the fact, it didn't bother him about sound checks or even who was accompanying him or what. He took it all in his stride. He's thrown up to a microphone for the first time without even checking it and just get into it. There was no nonsense.
No nonsense, absolutely no nonsense, and gave it absolutely everything. He had his voice trained as a very young man or whatever, and it stood greatly to him throughout his career. He often told me that right up to the end or whatever, his voice was at the height of its at the height of his career, whatever, was running at I think 2.5 octaves, and right very, very close to the time, right up to the time that he was performing, even with us late last year or whatever, he was still at 2 octaves, which was which was tremendous.
Fantastic
but
range,
you're
wasn't
absolutely,
it?
Yeah, it was a pure gift. Yeah. There was a German, I believe, in UCC by the name of Fleischmann.
Yes.
Was the one who coached him in the voice training.
Yeah, wonderful composer
again,
and pianist, of course, as well. Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah. Yes. You're absolutely right. He was, he came into any situation, like you say, whether it was, going on the stage in the National Concert Hall, or doing something down in a pub in Southwest Kerry, Kilmare, we'll say, or whatever. He did, and he just launched into it. He performed many times in Jackie Healy-Rae's pub in Kilgarvan or whatever. That was part of his in his younger days. He did many the gig there, but again, he was highly sought after, if as much for his charisma and his personality and his warmth as he was for the tremendous voice that he had.
Well, that's for certain. You lost your own brother, Bernard. Who was
I did. Very sadly, Sean died back there in the 14th of August and left us all reeling or whatever. He died suddenly of a heart attack, and Sean was larger than life character himself, and
he sang a song too, didn't he? He sang.
Oh, he did. Yeah. Yes, he did. He did. He made his own. The Boys of the County Armagh was one of his. His great songs, and the other one, Only Our Rivers Run Free. And indeed, himself and Sean often burnt the late night oil in Calais, singing different versions of different songs. Sean's disappearance from our life, if that's an appropriate word or whatever. I'm talking Sean, and my brother Sean in this case or whatever. Yes. Has left a great void in our lives and in our community. He was a mighty community man, also. So we have to come to terms with that now. So I've no doubt that the two Seans are now up in heaven, and they're having a great time singing songs and telling stories.
I'm sure they are indeed. Well, my condolences to you, Bernard. But thank you so much for that tribute to the late great Sean O'Shea as well this morning. Lovely to talk to you, Bernard. Thank you for your time.
No problem. Thank you, Doc. Thanks very much, Fran.
Cheers. That's Bernard O'Sullivan speaking to us there with his friend. The iconic Sean O'Shea, who passed away last week, a short time, in fact, after his wife passed away as well, but fondly remembered right around the country. News and information's on the way.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Thanks, Pat, and welcome back to the second hour of Tipp Today. Now, a new electronic tagging system for prisoners in the Republic aimed at easing chronic overcrowding in Irish prisons is set to be introduced and operated entirely by a private company. Now, Dr. Paul Davis is an associate at DCU Business School, and he recently explored this move in an opinion piece for the Irish Times, questioning whether outsourcing electronic monitoring is more than merely a practical response to the prison capacity crisis. And he joins me now. Paul, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And thanks very much indeed for your time today. This is the first time any part of the criminal justice system has been privatised, Paul. At first glance, it seems practical solution with similar programmes in the UK and the States. But you have concerns.
I do. I think when we go back, there was an original suggestion that we outsource the transport services. Must be about 15, 20 years ago. And this was stopped on the basis of that control of justice needs to remain within the preview of the state itself. We have seen it being outsourced in other jurisdictions, but they have also failed in other jurisdictions. The UK, for example, there was only a Channel 4 dispatches programme last year that actually showed how the UK, using a particular provider, had failed to deliver on the service. They actually had at one point a backlog of over 4,500 people not on the tracking system, waiting for monitors to be put in place, including one murderer who had not got a tracking system in place for a number of days because they wouldn't fit his legs. So when we start outsourcing one part, the risk is we outsource another part, and it goes piece by piece. And the fear here is that justice is not something that is inconvenient. It's actually quite important for victims and also the legitimacy of the system itself to make sure that it's actually kept in-house.
You made a very interesting point when you made a comparison with our housing developments here over the years, and when we began to privatise that, look at where we are now, I suppose.
It is, and we've seen it before. I mean, the state never stated clearly we were going to have a withdrawal from housing building. It just took place over 25, 30 years. And now we've got a system struggling to respond at scale because we don't have the organisational capacity to do it. We've done this in a number of sectors. We've done it in water. The local authorities used to look after the water. We withdrew that, put it into one agency, and now we suddenly find that we don't have the capacity to deliver it because we've got rid of the capacity over years. In terms of water support, we've seen this in terms of infrastructure, including the likes of privatisation of the electricity provision services. We've got to be very careful. Outsourcing is always an attractive option because it reduces costs in the short term. The problem with it is that in the long term, you're actually losing the capacity and the capability in your own system. Now, there is a question about whether the state should provide all of the services, but the state should certainly have a provision of some services. And I argued that certainly in terms of justice, for instance, I don't believe justice should be outsourced. I believe that that is the responsibility of the state to make sure that they actually carry out that. And if they actually lack capacity to manage the electronic tagging now, it probably should concern us and say, well, why have they not developed that capacity? And what is it that needs to be done to develop that going forward?
You also make the point about the justice system that when that fails, and if there is a failure in this tagging system, that it could be catastrophic in its own way.
It could be. You've got victims out there who do not know where people are. We've got a private sector organisation, perhaps, and we don't have a clear line of sight of how that's going to coordinate both with the prison services, the probation services, or the Gardaí. What happens in the UK was an example of whereby there was a clear lack of failure in delivering the system effectively. And it was being delivered at a very cost-effective way, so in other words, cheap. And so therefore the people who were going in didn't have a full authority of a prison service or a probation services. They were paid employees of a third-party company that had to fit a tag. And that in itself put them at risk as well. I think that we need to be very careful about what we choose to outsource. And although from a technology point of view, this might seem something attractive to do because a third party can provide it, I think what we have to remember is we're outsourcing a punishment. Somebody who's on an electronic tag has to report in, has to be traceable, has to be trackable. That has to be part of our justice system. If not, we just hand it over to a third party to monitor. And I don't think that's setting a proper precedent.
Have you looked at the cost savings here, what they would be? Are they modest or are they considerable? Or?
In most cases, when we outsource, the cost savings are generally marginal. So in other words, we have certain issues of making people redundant from the civil service and then actually building up the capacity externally. The problem with it is over a longer period of time, the price increases. So the third party who's delivering the contract becomes probably the sole supplier. And so therefore you get initial cost savings, but overall your costs increase over the life of a contract, and not even one contract. Remember, if you put this in, the chances are you're not going to outsource it to a second supplier. So the chances are this is going to be a supplier who's going to be permanently embedded inside the public service. We talk about awarding contracts every 3 to 5 years, but think of the complexity that you award a contract to one supplier of tagging, and then you have to move it to a second supplier. Highly unlikely. And it's highly unlikely a second supplier would enter the marketplace. And if you did have a second supplier, would you want 2 suppliers managing the data of tracking prisoners? You can imagine the complexity that goes on there. So you can get cost savings in that short term, but in the long term, no, you actually end up paying a higher price.
You mentioned the data. That was one of the things that occurred to me, Paul. I mean, with GDPR the way it is now, and this would be relatively open access to people's private information. Sensitive information, yeah. It would be,
and it would be third-party information or a third-party provider. And yes, we can build it in, but it's a contractual relationship from a GDPR point of view. You're moving it outside of the justice system. And I think that raises concerns in itself about how we manage data. The Irish have proposed this as a pilot, but I don't think they've thought it through. I mean, you used the example of look at the US and look at the UK.
Yeah.
UK put it in. It didn't work. They're still struggling with it. And the company they have has been through a number of scandals anyway in terms of prior to putting this in. But they pointed out, I think it was Channel 4 pointed out, they said the internal IT system generated so many alerts that identifying genuine breaches was according to somebody inside it, like finding a needle in a haystack. So automatically, if the data that they're managing is poor, how can we be sure that the data that they're now putting back into the system itself is accurate? I think it's a real risk from both data protection but data management point of view as well.
Yeah, the situation in America goes so far as you have prisons that are privatised over there. Have you looked at that, Paul?
I haven't, but again, what you are looking at is a justice system now that has, and if I remember my statistics, it's one of the highest rates of incarceration per population, which suggests that maybe privatisation is leading to incarceration, and the motivation to have people incarcerated is driven by profit rather than actually justice. Look, tagging is a very good suggestion in terms of managing people with low risk in the community, and it should be seen as something that's very positive. But it is part of the power of the state, and it shouldn't be something that we jump to and say we'll pilot it with a third party and then look at a third party doing it. It should be piloted within the prison system and managed within the prison system as a piece of technology that the prison system takes on board, because that's what our justice system is about, not outsourcing.
Thank you very much indeed for your time this morning, Paul. Thank you and good morning to you. And that's Dr. Paul Davis speaking to us there. How do you feel about that? Electronic tagging, maybe that notion as well of privatising that. Do you feel strongly about that? We'd love to hear from you. 1800 938 007. Let's take a break. Back in just a moment.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, puck on. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Yeah, unless they're on to say we need to build a super prison similar to that in Venezuela, and electronic tags are no good unless an electronic shock can be administered at will by prison authorities. There's somebody who's very hardline. I'm not sure if I look to the Venezuelan system of incarceration, but there you go. Somebody else says, good morning, Fran. It's understandable that family carers are feeling overwhelmed, especially with the added pressure of revenue. The issue may stem from changes in means testing or policies aimed at increasing revenue, which could inadvertently target family carers, despite their vital unpaid work that saves the state billions annually. To address this, I recommend requesting a meeting with local TDs to clarify the reasons behind these revenue actions and advocate for better support and protection for family carers. And that's in from Barbara today, and that's making reference to a piece in the Indo today, which says that thousands of carers are being hit with tax bills going back years after revenue got access to data on the repayments. Now, it comes after the Department of Social Protection started sharing data files on those receiving carers allowance and carers benefit payments with revenue. Now, you'd imagine they might have something better to do with their time, but there you go. On yesterday's programme, I spoke to my great friend, musician Gabe Brazel, about showbands and dance halls and all of that kind of thing. Huge reaction to that indeed. And I said we have to talk to our good friend Mary Gordon about this, and she joins me now. Good morning to you, Mary.
Good morning, Fran. Happy New Year to you.
And many happy returns. Good to talk to you, Mary. Funnily enough, we'll talk about Tipperary in a moment, Mary, but I know that a lot of your socialising as a young gal was around Parnell Square in Dublin. And of course, there were so many wonderful ballrooms there.
Oh, Fran, I lived in them. 10 shillings in, dancing from 8:30 to we had to be in the hostel back in the day at 11:30, so you had to make the most of the 3 hours. But yeah, the Iron, I met my lovely late husband in the Irish Club out of a Ladies' Choice, Fran, the Television Club, the Nurses' Dance in Barry's Hotel.
Yeah. The National was on. Yeah.
The National was big, huge back in the day, Fran.
Yeah. And they were all within a short walk of each other. You'd wonder how they were all able to do such business, Mary.
Yeah, and they were all jam-packed, Fran. Now, there was bouncers in the Irish Club, which I frequented. Now, funnily enough, they were on, you talk about the social dance now, Fran, maybe, Monday night, Wednesday night, then weekends or whatever. But they were on 3-4 nights a week, Fran, and you always had a crowd. Now, we used to get in more times than not for nothing because we used to smirk up at the bouncers and give them the glad eye. So we always got the free passes, which helped the cause.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing I found is amazing you mentioned bouncers and doormen there, because they were huge crowds, but there always only seemed to be like maybe two people on the door. But there was rarely any hassle.
Oh, there was no hassle, Fran. Now, I remember vividly as long ago, I'm talking 68, 69 here. I went to Dublin in May 69 to the civil service, and there was I remember him fondly-ish. There was a bouncer in the Irish Club, Fran, and if you got, if they played a slower number, a smoochy number, and you were caught cheek to cheek or anything, I think I said this to you before, he'd have a stick in the hand, friend, and be going around poking you in the backside and in the back, like, stop that.
Bouncer? The bouncer did? No way.
The bouncer, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
There was no smooching, when if you wanted to get up close and personal, you had to do it outside somewhere.
What about the bands, Mary? Who did you favour back in those years?
Oh, Christ, there were actually, my sister did a bit of research last night, friend. There were too many to, I'll pick out a few. Eileen Reid and the Cadets, Eileen with the big haystack on top of the head, like the hair.
Yeah. I gave my wedding dress away. Was that was the song, wasn't it?
Oh, God, friend, it was gorgeous. Yeah. I still love that song. Yeah. Donny Collins.
Oh, yeah, great band.
Donny Collins, yeah. And Donny always started the dance with, what was it, Be My Guest Tonight.
Yeah, great opening number too, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Rolly Daniels, Butch Moore, the Crucial Show Band. Friend, there were too many to mention, like, there were absolute Big Tom, of course, Dickie Rock, spit on me Dickie sitting up on the stage, like.
Did you like Dickie?
I wasn't huge on him now, friend, I have to say. I wasn't a huge fan, but I mean, any night you could get out to a dance and get in free, when you were earning £8 a week, Fran, was a bonus. It didn't matter who was playing, really, like.
Yeah, it always seems to me that Dickie was preferred in the cities, or the city people, if you know what I mean.
He was, spot on, Fran, yeah. Now, I was never a huge fan. God forgive me, I'm such an oil painted myself. I just never liked the look of him. The gore of him, as my father used to say, friend.
The gore of him, is that what you said?
The gore of him. That was the greatest one of my fathers. I didn't like the look of him. I didn't like the gore of that fella at all.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
No reflection on Dickie, but no, Big Tom now. I remember Roonan one night in Las Vegas. I said to my son here through the years, like, you know, where used you go dancing? What was the crack back in the day? And I said, oh, Jesus, we'd some nights in Las Vegas. And he said, Jesus, man, you're in Las Vegas. Yeah, I said, it was only over in Temple Board, though, like, but...
yeah, that was the ballroom in Temple Board. Is that where we were kind of arguing about that? Is that where the furniture shop is now, Mary?
That's exactly, and I think there's another one in the Oyster Ballroom in Drumkeen, and I remember actually going into that place and my brother-in-law being turned away because he wasn't wearing a tie on the night, friend.
Go on, wow.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Fabulous memories. Like, I'd love to go back to it for 6 weeks and relive it. Love it.
And of course, we'd all be, when I say we all, I'm talking about musicians and singers, we'd all be boasting now if we had a couple of hundred people. But back then, Mary, 1,500, 2,000 people was nothing. You know, it was... Oh,
that was nothing. The Irish club, you couldn't hardly get in the door, friend. And from the minute you went in, the old ladies' choices. I was laughing yesterday. You were talking to Leanne, I think, about the fellas on one side. It was like the Wild West, like, you know. The music would start up and they'd all cheer across the floor, but God forgive me for saying it doesn't matter now, 60 years down the road. But anyway, if we didn't like, there was big high pillars in Las Vegas in Templemore, friend, and like they'd all be scooting past you and they'd all be leaping up on top of one another, and if you didn't like the look of a candidate and you thought he was going to ask you, you ducked behind the pillar, and then if someone came along that you thought, Jesus, wouldn't mind him at all, you'd put the head out and he'd give you the back and out you'd go, but you'd be shuffling more than dancing, friend. Like.
And what do you mean, he'd give you the back? Like, he just sort of give you the eye to come on?
Give you a wink or nod the head and away you go then, and if you were lucky you got a second one or maybe a couple, like, it depended on the night, like.
Do you know, Leanne was so taken with that notion when we spoke about it yesterday that you know, literally the men lined up on one side and the women on the other. That was the way it was. Yeah. And
that was the same in the Irish club, friend, like, because I remember meeting Brendan, God rest him, out of a ladies' choice. He was holding up the back wall. And I thought, you know, this is a lady's choice now, I'll chance it, like, you know, and the rest is history, like, you know, and he was fogging the fag. Back in the day, you could have the fag inside, yes, and, you know, would you like to dance, sort of thing. And as I said, the rest is history. And, of course, the mineral bars, the youngsters don't get this at all, friend. Imagine going to the mineral bar, like.
Yes, yeah, no.
You know.
And no option. Now, in fairness, though, the fellas would have come from, well, some of them would have come from the pub, and then you would have had the guys with the pioneer pins, and were they particularly attractive, Mary, because you knew they didn't drink?
Well, you see, Fred, like, you know me too well, like, we always want the bad boys, Fred. You know, you don't want the fellow with the pioneer pin and all straight and like a bottle of Lancer long and tall, like, you know, but we never got off the floor, you know, the hot pantsuits, and I actually got into the finals of Miss Lakes 11 1969 in the Irish Cup. Friend.
Did you indeed? And are there photographs, Mary, that we could peruse?
Well, you know, I might go. I think there probably is. Now, you'll see more arse than anything else, Fred. But anyway.
But you do have photographs, Mary, do you?
Oh, I do have photographs.
Wow.
I've won in the miniskirt sitting down with a face on me because himself got somebody else up to then, so I was sort of thrown on the benches, they say. But I do have photos. I'll root out one and I'll stick it up on my face.
Please
just
do.
for you.
Please do. We'd love to see that as well. It was a bit of an emotional roller coaster. As well as being a night out in the evening and dancing, it was an emotional roller coaster as well, wasn't it, Mary?
In what sense now, Fran?
In the sense that you didn't know, would you get the fella, would he ask me to dance? Maybe he wouldn't. And then, as you said, you might see him with somebody else, and that was disappointing. You know, there's a lot of emotion to it.
Oh, there is, Fran. I mean, you know, back in the day, we all... I was lucky in the sense that when I got himself up to dance, I said to the girls, I was in a hospital at the time, just up from Bolton Street Tech there. I don't know if it's still there. I think it is, actually. You know, I'm going to marry that fella, like. I had me sights on him, Fran, and he was it. And luckily for me, it started off bad because I had, the same night I was wearing a mini skirt up to me hips, like, and I had a pair of what I would call highwayman shoes, you know, the chunky shoes with the red buckle on them.
Yes.
And he put the buckle flying. Now, he could dance on a pinhead. But he says to me, the way he got around the chat-up line was, it's Grand Pet in his Dublin accent. Come up to the mineral bar and I'll fix it for you. Now, I don't know how he got it together, but he did.
He fixed your shoe.
He fixed the shoe. But, there was a lot of women in the Irish Club now, friend. I see where you're coming from with the emotional end of it. Like, you know, you'd see the bull's looks. She got him up, or he's after giving her a second dance, so that's my chance.
So you'd get the evil eye from one of the other ladies, would you?
Jesus, the evil eye, the green eyes, like, you know, look at her now, cock of the walk there, gone off at him, and he's the best dancer in the place, sort of thing, like. But, Aaron, look at, you just passed it off, and fingers crossed behind the back that would work out, and normally it did, like.
So in Tipperary, you went to the Las Vegas in Templemore, and you went over to Drumkeen. Did you tell me that as well?
The Oyster Ballroom,
Ballroom,
yeah, of course, and the Premier, of course, and I believe there was one in Limerick. I'm not sure. You might pick me up on this. The Jetland, was it?
The Jetland. Now, where there's a big, huge Dunn Stores out there now, Mary.
There is. Yeah, there's. It's a big complex. I'm only living 5 minutes away from it, actually. But geez, there were great times, friend. Like when the pubs started to come into being, as poor Brendan Grace, God rest him, you say, you know, and back in the day you had to bring your drink with you, usually in you. I didn't take a drink back then. I didn't take a drink until the day I got married in 72, but we had such a ball, friend. Like, I remember Las Vegas, there was a little shop up the road from Las Vegas, and if you scored, let's say, or got lucky, you went up after for the club milk and the glass of orange, and we came home delighted with ourselves, friend.
God, it all seems so innocent. Would you have come down to the Premier in Thurles from time to time?
Oh, I would. I used to come home at weekends, actually. Catherine was just saying to me last night, my sister, that we used to lip up on the bikes, friend, and cycle to the Marquees in Toomevara and Clough-Jordan.
And what were they? Again, Mary, I was trying to explain to some of the younger cohort here about the Marquees. Like, when you were all dressed up in your finery, the Marquees were dirty. I mean, you had to wade through muck to get into them, weren't they?
Manky. They were out in big field, big tent, friend. If you wanted to go to the loo, you lifted up the corner of the tent, went out and found wherever you had to go to do your thing. They were... It's like a slurry pit, like, but that added to the magic of it all, though, friend. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And where did you say you would have gone to the Marquees?
There was one in particular I remember going to in Toomevara, and there was another one in Clough-Jordan, and we used to cycle there, friend.
My God almighty, isn't it amazing?
And Leanne would be highly amused because, you know, getting back to the dance halls for 3 seconds, friend, if we used to go out, we'll say, in 3s and 4s, hitch a lift, and if you had a car back in them days, it was a big, big novelty. So some fella would drive to the dance on his own, friend. He'd come home with a crowd. Yes. We'd all pack into the car, so the court was out of the question, like, you know.
Aren't they lovely memories? Do you remember the transition then when the ballrooms began to wane and, you know, the so-called singing lounges ended up there? Do you remember that transition, Mary?
Oh, I do. Actually, would you believe I saw Roy Orbison live in Dublin, friend?
Did you?
I did. And I absolutely loved that man's voice.
Oh,
yeah,
stop,
I think he passed away around 80, in the 80s, 87, 88. But Brendan and I went to see him one night. I think it was a pub called Slattery's. Now, Jesus, I'm going way back. I'm talking early 70s, 68, 69, 70. But I do remember that transition and being very down in the mouth about it, friend, because now I got married in 72, so I had maybe three 3 good years of the showbands era in Dublin, but then I used to come home at weekends on the train and get into Las Vegas and the Drumkeens and the Premier and the rest of it. Like, so I there was a transition between the city dances and the country dances back in Tipp, like.
And, you know, there's a lot of criticism of the show bands, you know, from other musicians saying, sure, you know, they were only playing other people's music and all of that kind of thing. But there were some great musicians. I mean, there were wonderful musicians involved in those bands.
Oh, well, I mean, take Joe Dolan. I mean, to me, he was one of the best in the business, Fran.
Yeah.
And I was Googling it last night, and I was wondering how, you know, like at the social dance now, you know, the hall has to be paid for, the band has to be paid for, and blah, blah. It was 10 shillings back in the day, but I believe, according to Google, that the bands, the big bands back in the day, the likes of Dickie Rock, Joe Dolan, Big Tom, got 60% of the door takings.
Yeah, but you see, the crowds, though, were so huge, weren't they?
They were massive, Fran. You were talking 1,000 upwards. Like, I mean, you wouldn't get it. You'd be lucky now to get, 100 at a small venue now in the country would be a bonus, as you know yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
sure, we'd all be if we had 150 or 200 people, we'd be telling the world about it at this point. You know?
Absolutely,
it's
yeah.
Amazing. Somebody saying to me, Mary, the great Jim Reeves played the Las Vegas Ballroom. That was that famous tour that he did in Ireland, I suppose.
Oh, my God, yeah.
And Dennis in Rossgrave says, I met Slim Whitman there as well. And
wow,
yeah, isn't that? And he says Thin Lizzy, played there as well, isn't that?
Oh yeah,
incredible, you know. Mary, lovely memories, and a pleasure as always to talk to you. And thanks for that, Mary. Thank you.
Not at all, Fran. God bless. Take care of yourself.
Great to chat, bye-bye. Mary. Thank you. Bye bye. That's Mary Gordon there. 1800 938 007. Joe was on to say, Fran, great memories of the big bands playing in the Norbrook Lounge in Clonakilty as well. And I played back. I don't know how many years ago, when I was a young lad in the Norbrook Lounge in Clonakilty as well. Very fond memories of that. Let me take a break. Back in just a moment.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the Expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high-roof vans, long-wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Join the conversation in Tipperary. Contact us through Facebook, Twitter, or email tiptoday@tippfm.com.
And you're very welcome back. Now, on Friday last, the sad news reached us that Liam Coen, founder member of the band Rebel Hearts, had passed away. He was laid to rest yesterday. Regular contributor to the show, Tom Hennessy, was a great friend of his, and Tom joins me now. Good morning to you, Tom.
Morning, Fran.
Good to talk to you today. I was very taken with the piece, the tribute you paid to Liam online. You described receiving that news as an emotional roller coaster for you, Tom.
Yeah, look, it's been a hard few days for anyone that knew Liam Coen. And let me tell you, Fran, I was in Coffee's after the funeral yesterday. Coffee's astute there. A real traditional Irish wake took place. It was an amazing array of musicians there to honour the man last night. But the warmth, and to say the man was loved would be an understatement. Grown men, you know, tears rolling down their face there during the mass and at the graveside. And I suppose it's ahead of us all, but I saw a quotation there. Someone said, I read it there years ago, all men, just don't get my head, 2 seconds right now.
Yeah, no problem, Tom. Yeah.
All men die, but only a few men really live. So I think that sums up Liam Coen. And yeah, the funeral was massive, Fran. In Canolty, like we're talking, I don't know exact figures, but it looks to be thousands that attended over the 2 days and yesterday again. And what a dignified and lovely mass it was, and a very traditional Irish mass. And of course, that's what Liam Coen was. He was a man of Irish history, culture, loved his nation, loved everything Gaelic, a great family man. and a man you'd be proud to say that you knew and were friends with. And I was honoured to have met him and grown to know him over the years. I suppose I first met Liam going to commemorations and following the band The Rebel Hearts, and he was a man that if he liked you, he really liked you, and if he didn't, as I say, he wasn't a yes man. He didn't suffer fools. He was always a gentleman, but he had his principal opinions, and he was loved for that, you know.
And tell me about his heroes. Who did he look to, Tom?
Yeah, like, I suppose he told the story of our country through music, which he was very talented at. He could play the banjo, the mandolin, the bouzouki, and I suppose going right back, he would be from an area that there was a good Fenian tradition in. You had the great Eamon O'Dear buried there in Clonoulty, where Liam was waked, actually. He was just a few yards from where Eamon O'Dear's grave is. Yes. And actually one of the last things he did there with a few local men like Liam O'Dwyer and Joe O'Keefe, he visited Eamon O'Dear's grave, and they cleaned it up there not too long ago. But that's he was always working in the background. Like, you know, we've done a lot of commemorations here in the last number of years, in Tipperary, independent Republicans, and if I rang Liam and said we've something on Sunday or whatever, if he couldn't make it himself, and especially when he got sick, he'd send on his great brother Paddy or some of the Dorns or the Motors, like great people, and all willing to give of their time freely. And I suppose his heroes were our Republican figures, and of course it was another great day from when John Crawley and Father Patrick Ryan met in his house. And there's a lovely video there, I'll put it up again over the next few days, of Liam playing the banjo for John and Father Paddy in his house, which is a gorgeous Irish cottage he'd done up. And that was a really great day for him. But he was an activist as well, and he was always involved in Republican activism and was always proud of it. I suppose 2012, it really annoyed him when the Queen of England was invited. And
yes, he wasn't impressed about that at all. Sure, he wasn't.
No, he definitely wasn't. But it's a funny story, Fran. Like, we organised a protest was organised, and the town was being locked down at 7:30. So Liam said, "You know what we'll go into Mother Hubbard's and we'll have the breakfast before we go up to join the protest." And we went in, and sure, of course, we pulled into Mother Hubbard's and walked in the door, and sure, it was full of guards and special branch. And I'd say we were the only two civilians in there that morning having the breakfast with them. But what was also funny that morning was an awful lot of them knew him, and they were asking Liam how the band is going, you know. And we drove up to town then, and we parked up across from Marcus Fogarty's there. And
Friar Street, yeah.
In Friar Street, yeah. And look, as I say, we had our names taken that day, Fran. But we were proud to have made a protest, and that was typical Liam. Like, he wasn't afraid to stand out from the crowd, and always proud of who he was.
Was he particular about the songs that the group would perform, the Rebel Hearts would perform? Was he particular about that, Tom?
Yeah. He didn't really like the lads deviating too much from the rebel music, which they were famous for.
Yes.
And I remember a few incidents where he actually asked me one night, it could have been up in Achill Island, maybe 2009 or 2010, he said he took a break. They were after playing Sweet Caroline, and he came down to me at the bar, and he was having the pint. He says, "What do you think of that?" And I said, "Sure, 'tis nice, Liam," he says. And a few expletives out of me. He went back up to told Paddy to drop the Moan bar now and drive it on, and like that. And you know, he was a father figure to them all.
Was he?
And if Liam said something, they all listened. And of course, another great day was the All-Ireland when we played in Talbot Street. And 'twas Liam that organised the Rebel Hearts, Liam and Paddy, to play that day. And you have to remember, Fran, he was actually in palliative care in Waterford at that time. Yeah. And Paddy described himself and Liam's good friend Rhodey a heron there, and Liam's father Michael going down, and they sprung him out of the hospital, and he was delighted to be let out, but he actually still had the hospital band on him above in Talbot Street. The video's up there online playing, and I think they also blamed Roddy for having him back late to hospital the following day, of course, after Tipperary.
I wasn't there, Tom, but I saw that video, and the hair stood on the back of my head even just watching the video. So that was an electric occasion, wasn't it?
Oh, electric. I'm sure you heard John Lahey saying that the atmosphere there was brought into Crow Park, and you know, I think that's fair to say. But I was lucky enough to go with the lads up to Crossmaglen in 2024. Paddy drove, Liam was in the front, I was in the back. And we pulled into Crossmaglen, and we said we'd go down and have a look at where the big British Army, where the tower used to be. Now, it's still there, the barracks. But anyway, of course, Paddy parked the car in front of a big sign saying no parking day or night by order of His Majesty or Her Majesty. Out we got anyway, and I had my Sean Hogan flag. And myself and Paddy gave about 5 minutes taking photos of each other in front of the big barracks. And I could hear this buzzing overhead, and I said, God, there must be electric wires still working on the top of that, Paddy. But sure, what it was a drone. But as we got back into the car, I heard this big door creaking, and sure, 25 lads came out heavily armed anyway, and down to us anyway. And of course, Liam being Liam, decided to tell the lads what we were doing there, and that we were into our Irish history. And I don't think they'd have had it easy if they tried to take him out of the car now, Fran. But it was brilliant. And we went up and he played a gig then in the bar, and just, you know, that's what Liam Coen and Paul, that's what Liam was like.
How did he deal with the illness, Tom?
Absolutely, 8 years fighting cancer. His right hand woman, of course, Bernie, unbelievable. Anyone that called to that house to visit Liam, so welcoming. And you know, he dealt with it like he dealt with a lot of life. He never gave up. He was resilient, and my God, like, he got short periods of life to live, time periods, but he broke them all. Like, so he was 8 years fighting it, you know. And look, he's a massive loss. Now, just one other story. That this video is up on my TikTok there as well, Tipperary Fiend, and he spoke at after a commemoration that was held in Salahid there 2 years ago, and he spoke in White Spar, and he had a few things to say about the politics, and it was coming up to the elections, and he told everyone to vote this crowd out. But look, it didn't go down well with a few people. He was asked to apologise. He said no, he's sticking to his beliefs, and the following day he rang me. He said, Tom, let's start our own commemoration. And Liam Coen was the man that we did our own independent commemoration last year, and Liam Coen was the man that is Liam Coen's commemoration now, and we'll be doing it again, please God, next Sunday at 12 o'clock. John Crawley is the speaker. But
in his name. That's
Liam's day, and I said it to Paddy last night. That was Liam's idea, and that's part of his that's part of his legacy. I went back to over messages there, like, we'd be in contact regularly, like, you know, and obviously, you know, he was very political and stuff, but I thought this was a lovely thing he said to me, and this is back in the 6th of January 2020. We were talking about, you know, where Ireland is as a country, and, you know, what has been achieved, and our 1916 martyrs, you know, what would they think of it? And he said, our history is in our songs, and I'm glad I done my bit to keep it going. I think that's a powerful. That was the 6th of January 2020, and I just thought that was a powerful thing to say. And of course, he wrote. People might know this, but he actually wrote a song called "Culture," and that's actually you'll find that there on the lads' YouTube page and TikTok. But "Culture" is a fantastic song, and I'd urge everyone to listen to it, because that kind of sums up Liam's attitude as well. So he's a huge loss to Tipperary.
He won't be forgotten. That's for sure. And condolences to his family as well. You have a Saturday night. You have a fundraiser, have you not, Tom?
Yeah. Look, we have a fundraiser for another good man, Sean Meehan, in Ollie's bar in Newin, and look, it's a hard time for Sean. He's still fighting hard to keep the roof over his head. Would have been a case that Liam backed big time as well, and supported us. And please God, now we're going to have a nice group of musicians there now on Saturday night, and it's free entry, just a donation on the night, and we'll have a raffle. So that's Saturday night, kicking off around, I think, 8 o'clock is up there. But look, Sean is on the front line in a lot of what's wrong at the moment in the country, and it's very important we support them. And it'd be great if the law was changed, Fran, to let people, put roofs over their heads rather than going homeless. Sure, our homeless figures are a record at the moment,
So that's 7 o'clock on Saturday night in Ollie's in New Inn, I think, Tom, isn't it?
That's right, Fran.
Right.
That's right.
And there will be musicians there, and there will be a few songs sung as well.
There will. Yeah. We'll remember Liam that night as well. So,
and just finally, another word on Liam. I mean, he must have been delighted that in the last few years, in particular, young lads. Particularly young lads, and I don't mind saying that as opposed to young girls, but largely young lads, they're out there singing the ballads again. They're singing the old stuff again and singing some of the new ballads as well. He must have been delighted with that, was he?
Oh, delighted. And I brought one of my own lads in there to the Christmas concert with my brother there, and the amount of young people that were in there, and their rebel hearts they're continuing on. They're spreading the history of our country, and that Liam was very proud of that. And he knew, like he said to me, he said to me once, isn't it great to see another generation? And they are following them, and their music is very popular now, Fran. Like it's worldwide, because all their songs are on Spotify there now, and that you can listen to that anywhere. So. They've done so much for our Irish heritage and culture. And, 20 or 30 years ago, Fran, I suppose the Wolf Tones were keeping it going back then. But, when the lads were starting off, I don't think it was as popular, the Irish tradition.
No, it wasn't. Not at all. The ballad thing now really is taken off. Big time, And because of groups like Rebel Hearts and the like as well, and it's great to see it as well. Tom, it's good to talk to you. Thank you for remembering Liam so fondly on the radio with us today. Thanks for that, Tom.
Fran, and thank you so much, and condolences again to all his friends, and to Bernie and Cahill, and of course Mary and Michael, his parents, so wonderful people, and all the band, and the Moklers, and tis the Dorns, amazing people, Fran, and salt of the earth, and please God, we'll have a nice day next Sunday for him as well, and we'll be thinking of Liam. All
right, Tom, thank you, and good morning to you. Good meal, Mahagut. Thank you. That's Tom Hennessy speaking to us this morning about the passing of Liam Coen. News and information's coming up.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24111.
Thanks, Pan. Welcome back to the final hour of Tipp Today. 1800 938 007. The text and WhatsApp is 083 311 3311. A lot of people are very angry at that notion that revenue looking in to the payments to carers, and I don't blame you for being angry about that. Now, let me find, I was looking for something else here. Talk away among yourselves there for a moment till I find this. It's been one of these mornings with computers and look, I'll get to it later on. President Trump announced that he intends to impose a series of escalating tariffs on several European partners unless the US is permitted to purchase Greenland, intensifying an ongoing dispute over the future of the large Arctic territory, which is part of the Kingdom of Denmark. Of course, well, Joe was in touch with us about this, and he joins me now. Good morning to you, Joe.
Good morning, Fran. Good morning, and your listeners.
And good to talk to you. You think that despite the warnings, you're not too concerned about this, are you, Joe?
Not really. I'm concerned, of course. But in the first case, I was looking at some research yesterday there on the internet, and 4 of the Republicans have voted against tariffs. There was a Supreme Court, or one of the higher courts, and one of the states held there, and 4 of the U.S. Senate, the House of Senate, including the famous Mitch McConnell, but 3 others voted with the Democrats. So it's now classed as a tax. Tariffs are classed now as a tax in America, and in some of the states they're unconstitutional. So this is the second court case now Trump has lost in so many days, you know.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But he seems so gung-ho just ahead of his visit to Davos as well. You know, he seems pretty gung-ho about this whole thing, and he's playing the hard man on it.
He is, and he's kind of feeling what the reaction will be as well, you know, and so forth. But the frightening thing about me with him is he has surrounded himself, for want of a better word, with gobshites. Like, they're absolutely pathetic. There are a few of them there, with the one exception of Rubio and the foreign affairs man that comes over to Europe. The rest of them are absolutely, they're oh God, stop. However, I spoke to your researcher in relation to something completely different. And what I was saying there was, at the moment, America now is swimming in its own debt. It's absolutely drowning in its own debt. The current debt, at a minimum, if you want to be conservative about it, is circa 35 trillion. Some experts would say it goes as far as 37, probably further. So to give you an insight into how bad they are, in 2011 through 2012, the debt was roughly between 10 trillion and 12 trillion. It's now triplicate that. It's now 3 times that.
God,
so,
it's eye-watering sums of money, isn't it? I mean, you can't even get your head around how much money that is.
It is. Yeah, it is.
And what is your fear? Are you fearful about recession because of all of this?
Look, according to what I'm looking at, with some of the lectures I looked at there, it's worse. It has all the hallmarks of 1929, tariffs, high interest rates, houses gone mad, property gone mad. So
the crash, the famous Wall Street crash.
It was worse. It was worse than a crash in 29. It was a depression, which means that it lasted for 5 or 6 years of a minimum, you know. And the other thing, at that time, America had a get-out clause with the dollar. The dollar was the landmark currency around the world. Not anymore. Not anymore. The Chinese now are dealing in the yuan, and they have formed their own allegiance there called the BRICS, which basically is Brazil, Russia, China, India, South Africa, and a few more. Yeah, I mentioned India. So their output, economic output, their global output is roughly 37 to 38%, while the American output is 25%. Furthermore, China exports $500 billion, $500 billion in goods to the States, whereas the Americans export roughly 150 billion exports to China. Withstanding that the Chinese can source the goods they're buying from the States and other countries, whereas the States are caught up with China. China rules the world now economically.
So the balance of economic power, you're saying to me then, Joe, has changed completely.
Mm-hmm. Sorry there, I'm drinking tea. Yes, of course, it has changed completely. And the dollar is not completely gone, but it's waning by the time. And eventually it's going to lose its value so much to the fact that everything is going to go upside down in the States.
And let me ask you your opinion then. So a little open economy like Ireland then on the edge of the European continent, what's in store for us, do you think?
To simplify that as best I can, the whole world is in debt. We are in debt, we're in serious debt for the GDP. Now, the funny thing, I looked into debt, and where, like, if all countries are debtors, who are the creditors?
Isn't that the $6 billion or $1 trillion question? Who are the creditors? Yeah.
Well, it's not the simple answer. We are our own creditors. The Americans are their own. But I'd simplify it for you. It's like having a current account with a checkbook. When you write checks and then you post-date them, as they did in America for years, it's called, I had a name on it there now, and in other words, the check you write today is post-dated to June. June comes and you don't have the funds there to meet it. And this is what has happened in America now. They have pushed back debt so much that they've gone to such a stage now that nobody believes them. The Wall Street definitely don't believe them. And their bonds now and hedge funds and all that are going to be completely devalued. So they owe an awful lot of money to Japan, but they also borrow from all big corporate companies, the insurance companies. They owe an awful lot of money to China. But the other side of the spectrum, come back to Europe, Germany are in trouble. Not financially, they're bankrupt. Germany were always good at that. But all their exports have completely dwindled. Why? Because the Green Party took over in Germany, and they had the what you call it, like Sellafield there for manufacturing electricity, because the Greens didn't want plutonium, is it, or whatever there.
They got rid of their nuclear power bases, didn't they?
Nuclear is the word. Nuclear, thank you, is the word I'm trying to use. They got rid of that. Now, all their manufacturing, steel, minerals, the whole plethora, chemicals, a whole plethora, they're all gone again. China has taken over that. This is why you have the Mercosur deal. The Europeans are trying to open up markets in South America.
But have you thought about this, Joe? Was the whole world asleep when you think of it? I mean, you mentioned Germany there. I mean, they had huge dependence on Russia, for example. Largely a lot of eggs in the one basket. Did they not realise that at some stage or other that would come crashing down around their ears,
Well, we didn't foresee this thing coming with Ukraine.
Look at Russia with look at Europe with defence, for example. Did we not? Like, I can't believe that people didn't look further down the road.
Yeah, that's true. But we're always very clever on hindsight. But the one thing I'd say, you see, if you look at Ukraine there and Russia, we are the authors of our own making. The Americans caused that. They went into an agreement. Putin and the senior George Bush Senior went into an agreement that what are they called? Anglo-Irish, but a North Atlantic Treaty, I'll say it eventually, that they wouldn't incur any further into the West.
Where NATO? You mean where NATO was concerned?
Not NATO, I mean, North Atlantic Treaty, I think.
Yes.
They did a deal. The Europeans, the Americans broke it. Now, you reverse the psychology. If you put in, we'll say, the Russians or the Chinese into Cuba, looking in over the United States, everyone in the president will nearly have a baby.
You know that certain listeners now are jumping up and down and saying that is he trying to justify what Putin did then in Ukraine?
No, I'm not by a long shot of the imagination. But again, one must remember that a big percentage of Ukrainians are Russian-born, Russian origin, living near the Russian border. And it's something that's like a mixed bag with Northern Ireland. Like it has an awful lot of characteristics of Northern Ireland. But had we, you see, the Americans were always cribbing about China, looking at China and Russia and giving out, and they couldn't leave them alone. Listening to some of themselves there, Richard Black there, American Marine, he said that they have roughly 900 bases all around the world. The Americans have. The combined number of bases by the Chinese and the Russians are 35. That will give you an idea. Of what's going on.
Yeah, so, and just before I let you go, Joe, where's it all going to end up?
Well, the way I see it now, this is only my own layman's intuition.
Yeah.
We're going to have a correction plan in all countries because France is at the basket case as well, but that Portugal is, Spain is. We're going to have to look at where we're going. Things are out of control, and an awful lot of economists would tell you that this correction is needed. Now, how big or how small that correction is going to be, I do not know. But a lot of those economists would tell you this. And the other thing which I didn't understand about debt, a lot of debt with inflation is rolled over. We roll over a lot of the debt. Sometimes the debt is never paid.
Sure,
like
yeah.
You know, so look, you could be here until Christmas talking about it. It's a very
It's very, very complex. I was trying to read into it at one stage, and it's certainly very, very complex. And you're right about one thing. I'm still not quite clear on who we're borrowing for all of this debt, but there you go. Joe, good to talk to you today, and thanks very much indeed for that. That's Joe, who's in Holy Cross today. Now, I mentioned to you earlier on, it's on the Indo today. It's right across some of the other newspapers as well, with Charlie Weston's piece in the Indo. Revenue chased thousands of family carers for unpaid tax. Barbara is with me. Good morning to you, Barbara.
Good morning, Fran. How are you? And Happy New Year.
And many happy returns. It's lovely to talk to you again, Barbara. What do you make of that headline and that news today?
Absolutely shocking. I think Richie posted it there the other day. Part of the letter that somebody obviously received, Richie Malloy, Family Care's our manager here in Clonmel, and I think it's absolutely disgraceful the way they are going after family carers again, and causing major panic among carers, because I presume many carers out there may not have known that the carers allowance is a taxable income and always was a taxable income. However, I believe it should not be.
Yeah, part of that piece today in the Indo, Barbara, I know you'll be horrified about this, but one man in his 80s, for example, who cares for his very sick wife, he expects a bill of €6,000 in tax back payments for the past 3 years. Can you imagine the stress on him now at this point?
Yeah, I can, and it's like it's coming to the stage now where I believe, it's actually upsetting me now, but it's coming to the stage where I believe like family carers may just have to down tools and just leave the 20 billion that we save the state take over at this stage, because like it's a continuous fighting battle, day in and day out, just for services alone, never mind having to deal with revenue. When people get their carers allowance at the very beginning, they should be informed that it is a taxable income, like it's means tested, and like while they are doing away with the means test slowly, it's just beyond a joke now at this stage. Back in 1988, they gave an amnesty in the taxable incomes of people in Ireland, and that included some of our TDs that are presently in the dole.
Yeah. And some of our wealthiest people as well, yeah.
Yes, and, here they are going after somebody that's getting €270 per week. That works out a little over €1 an hour. We work 24/7, 7 days a week, every day of the year. There's no such thing as days off. I think it's just absolutely disgraceful that they are just coming again after carers for pittance.
And that's the thing. And you'd imagine, even from the government's point of view, just even if you were to take public relations, the fact that that's gotten to the papers today and that wasn't dealt with, as you say, in some sort of way, like an amnesty or whatever. Like it's just stupid stuff, really, isn't it? Because it's not as if it's going to bring in so much money that it's going to make a difference.
No, but again, you see, if they're going to do away with the means test, I presume they have to have some form of clawing it back into the government coffers again. So, what other way would it be only to tax, and go after taxes that somebody might owe, So people pay taxes. Absolutely, and so they should. But I believe the carers allowance should not be a means test, and it should not be a taxable income, because we work 24/7. We're not entitled to days off. We're not entitled to anything other than that payment. But we have to be available to receive that payment, you have to be available 24/7 to the person that you are caring for.
Yeah, Revenue was asked if the issue could not have been handled more sympathetically or with more empathy, Barbara, but it said it's a general principle of taxation that in the absence of a specific exemption, income tax from all sources is in general subject to tax. Revenue acknowledged that some social welfare payments are exempt from income tax. However, carers allowance and carers benefit are not exempted, and those payments are classed as taxable income, which sounds very kind of definite, doesn't it?
It does, and it's like not everybody would pay tax on their carers allowance for the simple reason is it could be the only income coming into the house. But also, like, I mean, most people say if they have a partner or somebody else that's working in the household and like they're jointly filing their tax returns, you know, absolutely people pay tax on it because it is a taxable income and it has to be declared as such. But like in saying that, the government should change policy in relation to the carers allowance because they're using the carers allowance. I mean, it is a social welfare payment. And until such time as actually it's a working payment or whatever, leave it tax-free like all the other social welfare payments.
Yeah, so another story there where a son was speaking about his dad in his 80s was looking after his wife with mobility issues and oxygen. And again, he's going to owe quite a few thousand euro, and he just had no idea about this, none whatsoever. And again, anxious, you know, just worried about this, and it's just...
Yeah, and I presume, like, people, you know, may think that because it's a social welfare payment, like most social welfare payments are not taxable, that this was the same. But unfortunately, it's the way the policies and it has been designed, like it is taxable. And like, you know, I mean, it is unfair. And like, if the person owes that kind of money, there should be some kind of leniency, some kind of amnesty that, you know, that going forward, they declare it, but leave whatever it was owed go.
And is that what, I mean, sometimes our public representatives are listening to us, Barbara. Is that what you would say to them, that they should be lobbying for that?
Absolutely. I mean, we elect our TDs. And I mean, our TDs should be up in the door advocating for the people that voted for them, including family carers, because they work so hard. And I mean, we have to, as I said, fight for every service. And people do not have time to start fighting now with revenue over tax bills. You know, we have enough to do every day to care for the people that we care for. You know, and without us, I don't know what the state would do, because the whole health system would collapse in the morning if we all decided to down tools.
And it would cost them a damn sight more money. That's for sure, Barbara.
Well, you look at it this way. If my son was in a residential setting, and the state was caring for him, it will cost them up to €3,000 per week or more, depending on the severity of the disability, where a carer gets $270 per week to do the same job.
There's no argument there, is there?
No, absolutely none, and there could not be. And I would say to our TVs, and especially here in Tipperary, please, when you go to the Dole, or if you're listening, please advocate on behalf of family carers in Ireland that the carers allowance be a non-taxable payment, because it is classed as a welfare payment.
All right, Barbara, thank you for your time today. Thanks for responding to that for us, Barbara. Thank you. Good morning to you.
No problem, Fran. Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you. Bye-bye. That's Barbara there speaking about that announcement today, that Revenue chasing thousands of family carers for unpaid tax. And now the skies of Tipperary were ablaze last night with the Northern Lights visible right across the county, right across the country indeed. And we posted some pictures on our social media platforms this morning. We've been inundated with pictures, and David Moore is with Astronomy Ireland, and he joins me now. Good morning to you, David.
Good morning.
Good to talk to you today. It was a hell of a night, wasn't it?
It certainly was, and not just your county, this island, but also the whole of the Earth. North America got some fantastic views as well. The display went on for many hours, and it'll probably continue this evening. And we'd love to publish people's best photograph. Don't send us everyone you took, because we've, like you, had hundreds sent in already. It'll probably be the cover story on Astronomy Ireland magazine next month. It's been one of the best displays we've ever had.
It's been incredible. Well, just from a scientific point of view, what exactly is it, David?
Well, every day on our social media for decades now, the longest running Aurora Alert Service has been issued by Astronomy Ireland. And what we do is, just around sunset, we say, what's the best thing to see tonight? Planet Jupiter, the Aurora, the International Space Station will fly over tonight. There's a big watch on tomorrow night and online evening classes coming next week. So yesterday we predicted there was going to be a massive Aurora. And to be honest, we thought it would probably happen after midnight. But you can never tell with these things. We had seen an explosion on the sun, and that sends a burst of radiation towards the Earth. And our magnetic field channels it into the North Pole and the South Pole. Not many people watching down south, a few penguins in the Arctic, and some place like New Zealand can see it in South America.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's very active Australia. But all of the Northern Hemisphere got to see this. And for once, it was clear over a lot of Ireland. And when this radiation hits the upper atmosphere, it makes it fluoresce. The same way fluorescent tubes work in your kitchen or factory. The particles from the sun strip off electrons from the atoms of our atmosphere, oxygen atoms mainly, and make them glow with that characteristic red or green colour. So it's a beautiful planet-wide fluorescent sky show.
I was reading something you said, you might help me to understand this as well. You were talking about the speed that it came towards us at. Would you talk to me about that?
Yeah, this was very unusual. Normally it would take 3 to 4 days when we see the explosion on the sun for the material to get here. It's 93 million miles, so it's travelling at, I'm mixing my miles and meters, but about 400 kilometres per second is the normal speed of the radiation from the sun, and it can double that. But this one came in about 1,200 and covered the void in about 25 hours. That's about as fast as it's ever been seen, which was the reason why it happened a bit earlier. And that's the only problem with these predictions. You know, we can generally tell if there's likely to be one, but sometimes you can be out by 12 hours either way. So it's a bit of an inexact science at the moment. There are more spacecraft being launched to try and monitor all this, but we did tell people to go out and watch from dusk till dawn just in case they did, and we can never get enough pictures of this, so do send them in. Astronomy.ie, by the way, is the website, and down the bottom you'll see the links to the social media, all free, Instagram, X, Twitter, and Facebook, of course. And you know, you'll get our prediction every day of whether or not there is going to be an aurora. The answer today, I can tell you in advance, will be yes. We do expect it again tonight.
Fantastic, and the fact that it's frosty weather, so we have clearer skies. Is that part of the reason why we can see it so clearly?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be clear. It can be all happening above our heads, and thick cloud will stop us seeing it. And that happened so many times last year. Now, if you go out and try to watch every display at the Northern Lights, and some of them are just little glows on the horizon that you really need a camera to see, you can barely see them with the naked eye. And I saw a dozen of those last year. 2 or 3, that's from Ireland, with our weather. 2 or 3 were really good displays like this one. And the year before, we have 2 massive ones. NASA said the one in May of 2024 was the best one in 500 years. And I'll never forget the views of that. The rays were overhead. They come together like, it looks like a crown. It's called corona, the Latin word for crown. And you could see the colours last night with the naked eye. Often it's just a dim glow to the naked eye. So these spectacular ones are very rare. And we were doubly lucky in Ireland, where 3 out of 4 nights are totally cloudy. That's our statistic. And Astronomy Ireland is the world's most popular astronomy society, and how we do it with almost total cloud cover is a bit beyond me. But I think it's because absence makes the heart grow fonder. Just like in the summer when the sun comes out, we all celebrate with barbecues and get sunburns and everything else. The same thing when the stars come out. We've missed them, and maybe it's that causes the interest.
It seems to photograph brighter than what we see with the naked eye. Is that the case?
Yeah, we have a monthly online public lecture, and this December one was actually all about smartphone photography. What people don't realise is they're now carrying around a powerful astronomical instrument in their pocket. your smartphone.
Yeah.
And the reason it's so good is its lens is actually smaller than the pupil of your eye, but it can take long exposures. So our eyes are like video cameras taking several pictures a second. The light doesn't get a chance to build up that much. But a camera phone today, some of them can go 30 seconds and way outstrip what the human eye can see. That's what the talk was all about. And so you can photograph with your little lens on your camera phone stars much fainter, dozens of times fainter than you can see with the eye. And the same with the aurora. And of course, the human eye actually at nighttime goes into a special night mode where it feeds grey signals to the brain if the light level is very low. We can't see in colour in low light level. It has to be very bright for us to see these colours. The camera phone doesn't have any of those problems, and so it's superb for taking aurora photographs.
Cork, as you know, likes to claim everything, but they seem to be saying that the more spectacular aurora borealis images were around Cork last night. Particularly great photograph of Glanmire. I'm not sure if you saw that in one of the papers today. Is there any truth in that?
Not really. It would be more to do with the weather. So, for instance, it didn't clear up. There was a band of rain. You could see it on the rainfall radar moving up the country, sort of like a curtain pulling back over the country and revealing more and more of the aurora to each county as it went. And it was just clear in the southwest first. That's what happened. So, also, if you've got good camera equipment, there are cameras better than smartphones, then you can get an even better photograph. And part of the fun is trying to get your best snap. Sometimes they're very slow moving, and you can take a long exposure and get a fantastically bright aurora. Other times they're moving very quickly, and you only want to snap for a second or so and maybe make a whole sequence. And the real experts then go off and start stitching them together to make movies. They can often be speeded up, so watch out they're not speeded up. You might not see exactly what you're seeing online with the naked eye. But this is all part of the fun. The actual aurora is happening 100 to 300 kilometres above the ground. So 300 kilometres roughly the distance from Kerry to Donegal, the length of the island. So it's that high up. So we all get to see it more or less at the same time. And when the radiation is very intense, the stuff being channeled into the North Pole actually stretches out and it comes this far south. Often the aurora can be 1,000 kilometres away from us and just a glow on the horizon. But when it gets angry, as it were, when we had an explosion like we had on the sun a day or two ago, then it'll come overhead from Ireland. It has, on very rare occasions, gone beyond Ireland. You actually have to look south for the so-called Northern Lights, but that's extremely rare.
It's fantastic altogether. If people want to get in touch with you with their photographs, David, or indeed see what Astronomy Ireland is up to, how can they do that best?
Yeah, we're always looking for new members. We have beginners classes starting next week, and everything, how to get the magazine. This will be the cover picture, cover story next month, I can tell you. Just go to our website, astronomy.ie, sign up for the free social media. It costs about €1 a week to get the magazine all year round. I'll tell you lots more things to see. And those evening classes begin tomorrow week. They're online, so anybody in the country can do those. They've been running for decades. Thousands of people have taken them. They'll tell you everything you want to know about every aspect of the universe, not just the Northern Lights. And you can watch it now from the comfort of your own home. So astronomy.ie, and we'll watch out for the next aurora that's coming after tonight's one.
Great to talk to you as always. Thanks, David, for your time. Thank you. Good morning to you.
My pleasure.
It's David Moore there from Astronomy Ireland, 1800 938 007.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puck On. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the Expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high-roof vans, long wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puck On. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Now we continue on with our conversations about nostalgia and looking back at businesses that are no longer with us, and indeed nostalgia around the whole ballrooms and dancing and all of that kind of thing. I'm delighted to be joined now by the former proprietor of the Royal Hotel in Tipperary Town, the great Andy Lacey. Good morning to you, Andy.
How are you doing, Fran? Thank you for calling. Yeah, I couldn't make it down to you today. I had a bit of a tip with a car, so my car is in the garage getting repaired. So
I'm sorry to hear that, Andy, but it's great to hear your voice anyway. We were talking about music and dance halls and the like, and of course you would have had some great dances and musical events at the Royal Hotel over the years, Andy.
Yeah, well, I listened to your programmes going back, and I honestly got a great memories, Fran, because I mean, briefly, I'm from Donaskee, as you know, so you didn't know there was a ballroom in Donaskee, did you?
I did not, Andy. No.
The Central Ballroom. My first job was at Hayes at a shop there, and there was a ballroom there and upstairs. So the Central Ballroom in Donaskee, where a lot of people met their partners in those years, way back now. Way back, you know what I mean?
And is that where the boilers are made now, is that?
No, that's Crosses. But Hayes' shop was in the corner. Willie Hayes and Dominic Hayes and all them. Dominic's grandfather, Willie's father, they had a shop there. And there was very tough times in those days because I was born in 43, so you're coming through the war years, and that shop was pretty good because food was rationed and all that, and we were living in a cottage up the road, as you know, so I mean, you know, that's tough times. But they had a kind of a crusher place there in the back. Yeah. Then there was a ballroom upstairs, and lovely. It was a great place for the locals to meet because there was no cars or you know what I mean?
Of course.
All the locals.
Well, sure, I'm only living a short distance from that, and I never knew that, Andy. That's amazing. Yeah. And would bands come from all over the country there?
Not that big, no. I mean, with a follow-up from them was the John J. Dwyer Ballroom.
Yeah.
In Dundrum. You know what I mean? Peggy had the bar.
Yeah.
Where her Berkeley's is now, and John J. had the ballroom, and that's where we would go dancing. And Danny Ryan put a band together there and came out, and I sung there. I sung a couple of songs there with Danny Ryan playing there. I did, yeah.
Fantastic.
I did later on, then, of course, I tied up with the famous Ashley and in the Golden Vale, and so later on, then Ashley and myself were down in Tralee, and he decided to buy the convent, and the next thing there was a ballroom down there, and you know what I mean. But at the same time, we had Drumkeen, you had the Tower Ballroom in as well in the meantime, right?
Yeah.
And Tower Ballroom and Mick Tewey and Slim and all them.
That's right.
They were had to attend that place because it's a great place, great ballroom, you know. And even going away from the ballroom thing for 1 second, because like when I came back in '81, my first mission was to revive the musical society because I have a love for music anyway. I have a love for singing and dancing always and so forth. But I mean, I wouldn't be good to perform in the musicals, but I love the musicals. So then, see, the Gaiety, the XL was burned down, the cinema was burned down.
Yes.
Right, and 3 or 4 fellas got together and went to the credit union and got 50,000, and they bought the XL.
Yeah.
And the Gaiety was beside it, and the Gaiety was a great theatre there. Honest to God, I remember going to Oklahoma and in the Gaiety next door. But we tried to buy that when Tony Ryan came back down with me. We tried to buy that, but the persons involved wouldn't sell it. They were looking for an arm and a leg. So that then went to the extra. But I'm going off track a bit in the ballrooms, but that's the story.
Oh, it's very interesting. I didn't know. So tell me about the Gaiety again. Was that between the Tower Ballroom and where the XL is now?
Exactly, right there.
Right, okay.
Right there.
I didn't know.
There was wonderful shows down there, the years. Honest to God, I mean, like I said, I remember going to Oklahoma there, and it's a great performers. You see, Tipp Town, whatever they say about Tipp Town, been run down a bit, and I'm very proud of Tipperary Town. You know yourself, they're great performers in Tipperary musical town, really, like, and it still is, you know what I mean? But
for sure,
great performers.
But you had some great nights of music in the Royal Hotel as well, Andy.
Yeah, well then of course just from there then of course the Drumkeen started off, and you had Capamore, there's show dance, Morris Mulcahy, and I was going to Drumkeen, and Mary Gordon was telling you a story there. I'm going to tell you a quick story because you know when the people met the dancers when you walked across the hall.
Yes, yeah.
Right? So I have a fella, two of us were in good shape. We were talking, we were fancies ourselves, and there was two of the finest looking women you could see facing us across the way, you know.
Yes.
And I won't tell you who the fellow was with me because you know him, but he said, you lead the way, he said, you know. So I led the way anyway. And I asked the finest looking woman I could see, you know what I mean? Yeah. So she said no, but your man tipped, gave a little kick in the ankle, and I got a slap across the face. From that was a story there now.
They were different times. Andy.
Yeah, but those ballrooms are like it's ballrooms every place. Like you mentioned the Jetland, you mentioned Tippermore, you mentioned Cappamore and Drumkeen.
And would you have gone around? Would you have gone around to them all, Andy?
Yeah. So we get lifts that time. You know, we meet in a pub and fellas would chip in and we get a lift there. And then I bought a Lambretta scooter, so I was able to go to Drumkeen in a Lambretta scooter. So but much getting a shift with a Lambretta scooter wasn't much good, you know.
And especially if it was raining, I would imagine.
Yeah. The fella at the big car won that race anyway, you know. But then we came back to the ballroom and Tipp, and then. Of course, it took me a while to build. I came back in 81, but I had to build the ballroom in the back there. You know, you knew yourself.
Played it.
It took me a while. 86. So I bought great bands today at the time. I may even McDell played there, and the captain, the what they call Dickie Rock, Joe Dolan. Yeah, but you mentioned early on. Great to hear him, great to bring him, but we didn't make any much money on the big performers.
Why? Because they wanted so much money from the door. Was that it?
Yeah. I'm not talking him down for the performance. You know, like when Joe Dolan, he took 400 coming to the dance at that time, and they paid a $5 each. Yeah. Most of the money has gone to the performer, and then you had security and you had vet and you had all that kind of stuff. So there wasn't much out of it, even though the crowd loved it, you know what I mean? And Paddy Cole came down one, and Paddy Cole was a great success too in the All-Stars. Yeah. And they would be on the way down to the jazz session in Cork. And I get him on the way down on a Thursday night. You know what I mean? So,
did you make friends with any of those performers, Andy? Did you?
Paddy Cole was a great friend of mine. Met him in Tenerife and playing golf afterwards and so forth. Joe Dolan, Dickie Rock wouldn't be my cup of tea at all now.
Would he not? It's amazing. No. A few people have said that to us. Yeah.
Very cold, you know what I mean? Because when they come out to the normally performers, you pay them and they probably have one beer before they go, and I'd always give them a beer in the lounge. The outside before they go. But this guy was wouldn't communicate or wouldn't chat or do anything like that. No, he wouldn't know.
Yeah, whereas Dolan was very personable, wasn't he?
Dolan was okay, and Paddy Cole was fantastic, and Donny Collins. You know, Donny Collins there as well. You know, come on, baby, and be my guest. You know what I mean?
Of course, Donny was Limerick based, was he? He was based.
He was down in Mount Collins area down there. You know what I mean? Great band too, but other small bands came to and got very popular with me as well, you know. Pete Rivers band came and played a lot there now.
Oh, great band, yeah.
And then there was a jazz band, the Sounds were from Kilkenny. Yeah. They were great. It's out of my head now, but they were wonderful sounds. Yeah. But so the musical society you have a function every year too. They bring bands as well, you know, to raise money for the society, you know.
Yeah, and we're all looking back on all of this very fondly. Do you think is it a pity that it's gone in that fashion, Andy? Do you think is it a shame?
It's hard to put your finger on. Like, I mean, the social dancing now is a big success, and now it's a great success, really, because, you know what, see, the discourse come along then, and that does interfere with that. But the social dancing is back again. The discourse ran their race, fair enough, and then, you know, I suppose the licenses too. There was no license in those bars at the time, and you had your show beers, and then you were off dancing, and even in Drumkeen, like there was no bar. You know what I mean? But,
and young people find it so hard to understand that when you try to tell them about the way it was with the mineral bar upstairs in these places, they just find it hard to get their head around that.
Yeah, but now there's so much money in the country now they can't figure it out because we had no money. I mean, when you're getting 30 bob a week or something, and so much a commission driving a van. I mean, you're just enough to go to the old dance and maybe and maybe buy a mineral or something like that. You know what I mean?
I know, yeah. But you have fond memories of all those years.
I have really. I mean, I love those years. I mean, I love those years. And Tipp Town. When I was away, I couldn't wait to come back, really. When I was in Shannon, and then I went to New York. And even time I was in New York, I was aching to come back to Tipperary Town. Would you believe that? Because, I mean, I thought it needed a lift. I didn't think I'd be buying the Royal Hotel, but at the time when I bought it, I was glad I bought it because we got great support there for 20 years, and they loved the old opportunity of a place in town where they could go and dance and go and meet. And I still meet the people in the shops down and say, oh, so we met in the Royal. Yeah. It's lovely to hear it, Fran. It's lovely to hear it, honest to God.
Well, I still miss it, Andy. Every time I pass it, I still miss it. I had lovely nights there and lovely chats with yourselves there. Andy, will you promise to come down to us at some stage or other? Because I'd love to have a full conversation with you about all those years.
Yeah, we talked about it before. I was asking to a book, but there's some things I couldn't put in the book. Some activity I couldn't book in the book. So we'll have to record it first before we play it out.
That might be best.
I do that to you, Fran. If you're down sometime, we can arrange it. And I love you to talk to you.
All right, you too, Andy. You look after yourself. Thank you. That's the great Andy Lacey there of Royal Hotel fame. We'll take a break back in a moment.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1-800-938-007.
Now, on our Friday panel last Friday, we discussed Mary McAleese's piece in the Irish Times last week, where she described infant baptism as a long-standing, systemic and overlooked severe restriction on children's rights with regard to religion. Now, regular contributor to the show, a great friend of ours, Angie McGrath, was posting on Facebook about this, and she joins me now. Good morning to you, Angie.
Hi, Fran. How are you?
I'm well, Angie. Lovely to talk to you. You said you don't agree with any religion or any faith being forced on kids, but I think you're of the opinion that there are more important things that Mary McAleese should be addressing.
Absolutely, Fran. Now, in fairness to Mary McAleese, she does have a very good record of supporting, like even the Ryan report in 2009, so she she was just discussing this, but to be totally honest with you, there's 5,000 children homeless in Ireland, and really and truly their right to a house should be more important as to whether they were baptised or not. I'm pretty sure that when they look back in their childhoods, they're not really going to care if they were baptised. They're going to remember that they've nowhere to live.
And you said, don't even get me started on Tusla.
Oh, sure, I mean, Tusla, Fran, in fairness, the amount of kids, I mean, I'm not going to go into details for, people's families, but those two little children recently, I mean, it's just absolutely outrageous that this sort of thing is allowed to go on. There's absolutely no oversight. That's what I think, anyway. No oversight whatsoever. Departments are working independently of each other, and they're not even reading emails from each other. They can't be.
And so you're making a great point that somebody like Mary McAleese, former Uachtaráin of this country, somebody, who tends to be listened to, that she could use her influence in more practical ways. Is that what you're really saying, Angie?
I mean, her platform is huge, and she's very well respected. People listen to, she's putting out stuff there. She could be fighting, she could be saying, I know she does support Focus Ireland, I know she does, but really and truly, children's rights to baptism, okay, it's something that I don't agree with myself, I'm not into religion, but there's a huge picture here, there's a bigger picture. There's children, I mean, they even now have a name for it, and enforced deprivation. Children who don't have enough to eat, don't have heat in their house. I think that's a bigger, more important picture to be highlighting than whether their rights to baptism have been infringed upon or whatever it is she was saying. I mean, in reality, there's so much more going on and such a bigger picture going on here.
And, you know, these kids being deprived, Angie, when we're supposed to be making loads of money, you know.
Oh, sure, we're meant to be one of the richest countries, but we're turning into places like America now where the gap between the haves and have-nots is absolutely massive. I mean, they're literally, I mean, when they coin a term for what's happening to children in your country, you know you're really fighting.
Give me that term again, Angie. What is that again?
Enforced deprivation.
Enforced
That's what it's called.
deprivation.
So basically, kids are so-called living in a family situation, living with a parent or parents or whatever, and working, not working, whatever the people's situation is, and they are eating rubbish food because they can't afford to give them anything else, and that leads, of course, then to health issues as time goes on. And we all know what the way the health service is, so that's not going to work for people. And basically, by the way, living, first world lives in a home with everything else, but not having enough to eat, or having to decide between, will I pay for heat this week or will I pay for food? That's what a lot of kids' lives are now. And that's not even accounting for the 5,000 children that are in homeless accommodation or no accommodation at all.
As you say, instead, Mary McAlee is focusing on what is almost an academic sort of an argument about...
And, you know, of course we do have to have those discussions.
Yeah.
Of course we do. And it is, you know, a valid point. But if our country was doing really well on children and on children's needs, but when they're not, when we're failing miserably, children are being failed so badly in this country. And, you know, that's a kind of a moot point about baptism. It really is. And as you say, it's academic. I think fighting and using her platform to get children homes and food would be more important.
Yeah, we're reading, you know, sometimes you'd wonder where the focus of this government is, you know, because, again, we made the point earlier on in the show, Angie, revenue chasing thousands of family carers for unpaid tax, where you've...
Do you know what?
I mean,
it's
really?
Heartbreaking, Fran.
You know?
Heartbreaking. I was a carer myself for 12 years for my parents. The poverty of it. I mean, it's just absolutely outrageous. Doing a job, and absolutely, I'm not speaking of myself here now, but carers in general, a heroic job. The people that look after other people, their kids, their parents, whoever they're caring for, they should be all this thoughts and prayers, and we're thinking of, you know, that sort of stuff. That's all great and everything. But where do you cash that, Fran? They're living in poverty. And it's, again, enforced poverty. They should be paid a living wage. They're being paid less than minimum wage. They're working 24 hours 7, and now they want to tax them on that few bob as well. It's outrageous.
And claiming back tax just because older people didn't know. And, you know, I really felt about that 81-year-old man, I think, who was looking after his wife, and now he owes €6,000 all of a sudden.
But, Fran, a personal experience myself, after my parents passed away, I had a very similar situation, totally caught off guard, and same thing. And, that's what they do to you. That's exactly what they do to you. You're treated, the carers allowance is treated as social welfare as such. But then when it counts, it's not social welfare any longer. And
it's taxed as income in some sort of a fashion. Yeah. And you alluded to it there, Angie. And I often feel about this coming up to elections, because I haven't been, nor am I a carer myself. But I can only imagine how you must feel when you hear them saying how wonderful you all are, and you're angelic, and you're this and you're that, and you're fantastic.
Great. Yeah, you're great.
And then nothing, and saving the state so much money, you know.
I mean, the money side of it, saving the state so much money, but also saving every service so much money, all the different services that the person isn't able to use or can't use because they just can't afford to. And the money just isn't there to do it. And then they turn around and, as I said, it's social welfare until it's not social welfare.
And in the meantime, you think Mary McAleese might be better employed addressing some of the real issues?
Absolutely. Mary McAleese. I mean, read the room, Mary. Seriously. The country is failing our children and our carers and elderly people. The most vulnerable in society are being absolutely, the ball has been dropped so badly. I mean, it's incredible. And they can gloss over stuff, and it does seem like they will literally spend money on anything except for these issues. I mean, you have that young girl there, Cara Darmody, who's an absolute star of a girl, don't get me wrong. That girl should be out enjoying her teenage years, not fighting for services that government have promised. It's absolutely outrageous what's going on.
Angie, thank you for your time this morning. Thank you. Good morning to you, Angie.
Thanks very much, Fran. Thank you.
Bye-bye to you. That's my good friend Angie McGrath there in Cashel. Let me see. Fran, there was nothing better than Gina and the Champions in the Golden Veil on New Year's Eve. Well, that's for certain. And of course, they did that gig for so many years there, and it would always be packed, and it was wonderful too. Premier Hall in Thurles was great, Fran. A pity it's gone as a dance hall. Templemore Arms was great spot as well, says Jamie. Well, that's for sure. And Dan always ran a great shop up there in the Templemore Arms. There was a dance hall on Friar Street in Thurles, it says here. Okay. Thank you for that. Lots more coming into us, but we're just about out of time. Thanks to Ali, who produced today, also looks after our content, of course. And Stephen's on the way with the Time Tunnel. I will talk to you tomorrow. Look after yourselves in the meantime, won't you? Bye-bye.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.